Arx just got reincarnated into his favorite fantasy game. Sounds awesome, right? Well, not exactly. He's stuck as a background character, working as a personal butler to Eleanor, the girl literally destined to become the story's villain. And she's dangerously obsessed with him. Now, with her tragic fate getting closer every day, will Arx actually change the story and save her, or end up getting dragged down with her instead?
But this is not just any world, it is the setting of the famous Japanese otome game Celestia Kingdom, known for its multiple endings and its notorious villainess, Elior. Ark, however, is neither hero nor rival. He isn't even mentioned in the game's story. As he puts it, I'm just a background character. He remembers nothing from his previous life in Japan except his origin. Unlike typical reincarnation tales, he was blessed with no magic, prestige, or grand destiny. He was simply an orphan, living an ordinary life. Yet, Ark is different. Refusing to remain weak, he takes up the sword in his free time, initially just for fun. Soon, he shocks his village by defeating every elder in sparring matches. One day, the orphanage director approaches him, impressed. "Well done, Ark. With that talent, you could surely become a great knight." Ark laughs it off, pointing out that commoners cannot become knights. But the director insists, strength and wisdom make a knight, not birth. Then, with a mysterious tone, he asks Ark a favor. The scene shifts abruptly. Ark finds himself inside a lavish castle, nervously seated on a plush sofa. "Aren't we out of place here?" he whispers to the director. The director only smiles. "There's someone here who wishes to meet you." The heavy doors open, and a distinguished nobleman enters. "I am Adalbert Ensenis, Count of this region," he declares. Ark gulps, unable to believe a high-ranking noble stands before him. The Count turns to the director. "So, this is the boy you spoke of?" After a confirming nod, the Count looks directly at Ark. "I hear you are a capable person. I'd like to ask you a favor." The Count's next words shock Ark even more. "Would you be willing to become friends with my daughter?" Ark's confusion deepens as the door opens again. "Elior, come in," the Count announces. There she is, the Villainess of Celestia Kingdom, the girl who, in the game, spreads curses and stands at the root of all misfortune for the protagonist. Yet here she enters quietly, offering a polite bow. "It's a pleasure to meet you," she says. Ark's heart skips a beat. So this is her. "The two of you will surely become good friends," the Count says, smiling. "Why don't you take a walk outside in the garden?" They obey. The garden is beautiful, brimming with flowers. Trying to break the silence, Ark mutters awkwardly, "The Count was right. The garden really is lovely." Elior nods without much emotion. The gardeners maintain it every day. As they walk, Ark secretly studies her. She's his age, and despite her cold expression, her beauty makes his heart beat faster. Cute. Beautiful, as expected of a main character, he thinks, blushing slightly. Suddenly, Elior stops walking. Ark tilts his head. "Is something wrong? If you're not feeling well, we can return." She interrupts him. "As I expected, you don't really want to be my friend, do you?" She lowers her gaze, her voice trembling. "I understand. Nobody wants to be friends with the cursed girl. I've grown used to it. People only came to me when they wanted favors because I was a noble's child. But when my curse appeared, everyone abandoned me. Their eyes turned cold, filled with hate. Ever since then, no one has wanted to be near me." She extends a hand and gently touches a nearby flower. In an instant, the vibrant bloom withers into dust. "See? This is my curse. Everything I touch dies. Now do you understand why they call me a cursed child? Would you really want someone like me as a friend?" Ark stares, stunned. His heart tightens. He never knew she had suffered so much. In the game, she was the villainess, but here, she is just a lonely girl burdened by a power she never asked for. Could this be why I was reincarnated? To change her fate? To give her a happy ending? He steps forward, speaking firmly. "Elior-sama, I don't think your power is creepy, and I don't feel afraid. In fact, I think you are truly beautiful." Elior's eyes widen, her cheeks turning scarlet. Ark smiles warmly. "Yes, and even if you believe your power only brings pain, I'll do what I can to change that." He raises his hand and with gentle determination whispers, "Bloom." A soft light glows where Elior's hand had brought withering. Ark's touch brings life. Together, they watch as the once dead flower slowly blooms again. He looks into her eyes. "So, Elior, Will you accept? Will you be my friend? Later, Elior lies asleep, trapped in a haunting dream. Echoes of people calling her a cursed child fill her mind, voices cold and cruel. Suddenly, she sees her mother, whose eyes brim with fear. "Don't look at me with those eyes," her mother says. Elior breaks down, whispering that she wishes she had never been born. Abruptly, she wakes in tears. Ark, worried, gently calls her name. "Are you okay? It looked like you were having a nightmare." Still shaken, Elior tries to brush it off, but Ark points out how even exhaustion couldn't stop her worries from haunting her rest. He noticed her tears and panics. Without hesitation, he embraces her, promising comfort and security. Warmth returns to her heart for the first time. "Now I have a friend," she thinks. In another moment, Ark asks Elior if she will be his friend. She hesitates, fearing her curse will bring him only sadness. Ark promises the opposite. He assures her he wants to stay by her side no matter what. When Elior worries about hurting him, Ark answers, "No one can go through life without hurting others sometimes. Being together is worth it." Elior insists he'd be happier with someone else, but Ark holds her hands, declaring, "Elior, you're the one I want. Only you." Surprised but moved, Elior agrees. "Well, then, let's get along. Take care of me." "Okay." Back in the present, Elior apologizes for needing help. Ark gently tells her not to apologize. His heart will always be open to her. "Elior, you're too kind," she says, confiding that she's never had anyone she could call a friend or ally before. Ark reassures her, "That's okay. Friendship takes many forms. What matters is talking honestly and taking things slowly. Life is long and we'll face it together." They share a smile, newfound hope shining in their eyes. Weeks pass and Elior transforms. Ark marvels at the change. She is so much brighter and undeniably cute. One day as they chat, Elior notices Ark daydreaming. She pouts, asking if something is more important than her questions. Ark admits nothing is more important than Elior. Her delighted, mesmerized look says it all. "Believe it or not, I'm pretty handsome," Ark thinks to himself. Elior rolls her eyes and asks what kind of clothes he likes. Before he can answer, the Count calls him away for official business. Elior makes a face. "Go on then, since you're so absent-minded today." As Ark leaves, he leans close and whispers, "Whatever you wear, you'll always look great to me." Elior blushes as he heads off. The Count officially welcomes Ark into the Encenis household, making him part of their family. Ark feels grateful and expresses his happiness, adding, "There's one thing I want to do." He sneaks a peek at Elior, finding her fuming and impatient. As he goes outside, she grumbles, "You're late. Was talking with father really that fun while I was worrying alone?" Ark apologizes with a mischievous grin. "Forgive me, my lady." Fully dressed in his butler suit, he bows. "Ark Leofert, reporting for duty. From today, I'll serve you as your attendant." The story jumps forward 3 years. Ark bustles about preparing for a grand party. Elior has just turned 10, a major milestone in this world. Ark, now 10 years old, but remarkably capable, is overseeing all the arrangements.
A maid approaches. "Preparations are complete. Right on time," Ark responds. A bit weary, the maid notices his exhaustion, but thanks him for having everything ready by tomorrow. Ark reflects that the head butler made him captain of preparations simply for using common sense. The maid is impressed by Ark's ideas and his ability to execute them, but Ark smiles. "It's all for Elior-sama." He remembers her words. "This will be our first party together, so I want it to be big." For her, any effort and pain is worth it. Telling the maid he's off to train, she protests, "But you just said you're tired." Ark uses a bit of healing magic and assures her he'll be fine. After some time training, he spots Elior standing alone. "How long have you been there?" he asks. "A little while now," she answers. Ark gently scolds her. "It's cold outside," but Elior teases. "If I catch a cold, you'll keep me warm, won't you?" Ark is surprised by her directness. "You've been so busy lately. You hardly visit me. You're my servant, so you should always be by my side." Ark apologizes, promising that it's all for her magnificent birthday tomorrow. Elior blushes, relenting. "If that's the case, I suppose it can't be helped." Then she asks, "Do you ever feel lonely?" Ark shakes his head. Everyone in the household makes sure he feels included. Elior's mood dims. "I'll see you tomorrow." She leaves Ark to wonder what he said wrong. The party begins the next day. The Count discreetly signals Ark to watch for any trouble.
Ark's eyes scan the crowd, landing on a pair of twins he finds suspicious, but before he can investigate, they vanish into the throng. Soon, Elior makes her entrance, looking stunning and capturing the attention of everyone present. Ark admires her from a distance, feeling a pang of regret that he cannot stand by her side today. Suddenly, a maid calls him away. The scene cuts to a surprise. Elior has brought Ark to sit beside her at the main event. Ark is confused. Why did you bring me over? Ark, you're not just my attendant, and besides, you should be celebrated too. You're 10 now as well. Ark is taken aback. He never celebrates his birthday because he doesn't know his birth date. Yet Elior thought of him, giving him equal honor. He marvels at how someone so kind could be considered a villain. He smiles at her. It's an honor to share this birthday with you. Elior blushes deeply. Ark remains vigilant, his eyes scanning the room. He is determined to protect Elior from any harm. His thoughts return to the mysterious twins who disappeared. Only one thing is clear. As long as he is by her side, he will ensure her safety, no matter what darkness the future holds.
The ballroom of the Ancinous estate glittered under 1,000 candles, a sea of silk and whispered politics. For Ark's Leafort, standing at attention beside his charge, Countess Eleanor Ancinous, the evening felt less like a celebration and more like an exhibition. He could feel the stares of the nobility prickling against his skin, studying him like a curious artifact. He ignored it, his posture rigid with the dutiful focus of a loyal retainer. Then, the air shifted. A ripple of artificial brilliance preceded a young boy who strode toward them as if the very light bent to his will. He was blonde, impeccably dressed, and radiated an arrogance so potent it was almost visible. Without a word of greeting to Arx, he extended a hand to Eleanor, his voice carrying the presumptuous weight of a crown prince demanding a tribute. He wanted her to dance. Arx's eyes narrowed. A familiar digital readout flickered into existence above the boy's head, a phantom interface from the game world he knew so well. PP rank. Recognition clicked into place. This was Razor Killman, son of a Viscount, but he was younger, far younger than the character Arx remembered from the game's storyline. The timeline had shifted. This was Razor before his rise to infamy, a spoiled brat known in the game's lore for a foul mouth and violent streak, traits that were ironically overshadowed by his later fan-favorite devotion to the protagonist. Here, in the flesh, he was far less charming. Razor finally noticed Arx's gaze. His expression curdled into a sneer. With a dismissive wave, he ordered the servant to disappear. He turned back to Eleanor, baffled that she hadn't immediately fallen into his arms. He was a prize from the Celestia Kingdom, after all. Her compliance should have been automatic. Eleanor regarded him with cool, detached bewilderment. She clarified if he truly meant to dance with her, and when he confirmed it with impatient arrogance, her response fell like a guillotine blade. She refused. The rejection hit Razor like a physical blow. His composure shattered. He stammered, demanding to know why she would dare refuse him. Eleanor simply turned away, delivering the final, crushing blow. She felt not the slightest desire to dance with him. Humiliation ignited a volatile rage. The charming suitor vanished, revealing the violent brat underneath. With a snarl, he lunged, his hand darting out to grab her. But before his fingers could graze her sleeve, another hand intercepted his wrist with the speed of a striking viper. Arx Leafort had moved. Razor gasped, startled by the sudden resistance. "Know your place, servant," he shrieked. Arx didn't flinch. His expression hardened into steel. He introduced himself not just as a servant, but as Eleanor's sworn attendant. His primary directive, he stated, was to protect her, and he intended to fulfill that duty with absolute resolve, regardless of the aggressor's rank. In one seamless motion, he twisted Razor's arm behind his back, subduing him. The boy flailed helplessly, crying out at the brutality. Arx's voice dropped to a low, warning timbre. He advised the boy to calm down, pointing out that harming the daughter of a higher-ranking noble, or even her servant, would create a significant political problem for the Killman family. The logic pierced through Razor's tantrum. He froze, the reality of the hierarchy dawning on his face. He was a brat, Arx realized, but not an idiot. He understood power. He ceased struggling, grumbling a reluctant surrender. Arx, sensing de-escalation, released his grip and exhaled a sigh of relief. It was over, but the moment he relaxed, Razor's eyes flashed with malicious intent. A smirk curled on his lip as he pivoted, launching a sucker punch. It was a cowardly, desperate strike. But Arx was a veteran of a world far more dangerous than a ballroom. He anticipated the betrayal. With fluid motion, he sidestepped the clumsy attack and delivered a precise, calculated chop to the back of Razor's neck. The impact was dull and final. Razor's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. Arx caught the limp body before it hit the floor, A maid, Nai, rushed forward, flustered and terrified. Arx calmly handed the boy over, instructing her to summon his older brother and father immediately. As she scrambled away, a frantic voice called his name. Eleanor was at his side, her eyes wide not with fear for herself, but with concern for him, her gaze fixing on the red, swollen mark where he had intercepted Razor's strike. It was a minor bruise. Arx tried to brush it off, assuring her he was fine. But to Eleanor, it was a testament to the violence he had absorbed on her behalf. He smiled gently, telling her the swelling was trivial compared to her safety. Later, in a private parlor, the ballroom's tension was replaced by the heavy atmosphere of formal apology. On the floor, a young man performed a perfect jijiza, his forehead pressed into the carpet. This was Caesar Kilman, Razor's older brother. He fit the prince archetype perfectly, gentle and soft-spoken. His voice trembled with sincerity as he repeatedly apologized for his brother's disgraceful behavior. Arx, feeling the awkwardness of having a noble prostrate himself before a servant, urged Caesar to rise. Caesar complied, his expression weary. He admitted Razor had been spoiled rotten, operating under the delusion that he was entitled to anything he desired. Arx listened, internally noting that Razor was behaving exactly like the grade schooler he was. Caesar revealed the catalyst. He had merely advised Razor to ask out any girl who caught his eye, a benign piece of advice his brother had interpreted as a license to harass a countess. The disastrous result now meant Razor faced potential exile. The word exile hung in the air, a heavy, dramatic term. For a fleeting moment, Arx's composure cracked. The concept of exile, a staple trope of fantasy fiction, excited his inner otaku. He had to physically cover his mouth to hide a grin, quickly composing himself into a somber expression. He mused that in this world, a 10-year-old was considered old enough to face adult consequences. As the conversation concluded, Arx reflected on the implication. The Viscount's son, Razor Kilman's route, a valid path in the original game, had been officially obliterated. The story was diverging. If the game's immutable plot could be broken for Razor, then perhaps Eleanor's tragic fate could also be rewritten. Hope bloomed in his chest. He found Eleanor waiting for him on a moonlit balcony. She turned as he entered, asking if everything was resolved. Arx nodded, assuring her the matter was settled and that witnesses would protect her reputation. But Eleanor wasn't thinking about her reputation. Her expression was clouded with guilt. She apologized, blaming herself entirely. She called Razor a bandit and lamented that her birthday party had been ruined. Arx stepped closer, closing the distance between them. He saw the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. He reached out, his hands gently cupping her face, tilting her gaze up to meet his. In a quiet, vulnerable confession, she revealed the depth of her attachment. As long as she had Arx, she didn't care about anyone else. The party, the nobles, the politics, none of it mattered compared to his presence. Arx smiled, a soft, genuine expression. He asked her a question that cut through the gloom of the ruined party. Would she like to go outside for a bit, sneak out? He suggested it was too early to declare the night ruined. A flush rose on Eleanor's cheeks. On the stone terrace, beneath the obsidian sky, Arx leaned forward. Amidst the silence of the dwindling festivities, he asked if she had found the opportunity to dance with anyone. Eleanor paused, averting her gaze. With a somber demeanor, she admitted she had not danced with a single soul. She had actively rejected every offer. In their society, this was a breach of protocol that bordered on scandal. Dancing was an obligation, the very essence of noble connection. A sudden warmth colored her cheek. She revealed the root of her defiance. She lacked the courage to act earlier, but her true desire was singular. She wanted her first dance to be with Arx. She confessed she had intended to ask him the day before, but hesitation had stayed her hand. Arx stared at her, the pieces clicking into place. This was the cause of her strange behavior. She admitted she had never danced before, her insecurity on full display. Arx adopted a gentle, reassuring posture. He assured her that even if she faltered, he would be the only witness. He emphasized their privacy, noting that not even the moon was watching. A smile broke across his face. He told her there was nothing to be embarrassed about. Her expression softened into a radiant smile. Arx extended his hand with the grace of a trained gentleman, bowing slightly. He formally requested the honor of taking her hand. Eleanor accepted, her eyes shining. The garden transformed into their private ballroom. The narrative abruptly shifted, recounting the chaos earlier in the banquet hall. Arx had been surrounded by a throng of eager nobles, all clamoring for his services. One offered any price, another insisted he become a servant in his household. Overwhelmed, Arx raised his hands, begging them to calm down. They praised his stand against the Kilman heir and his skill with magic, but Arx silenced the crowd with a polite but firm refusal. He apologized, his expression shifting to determined loyalty. With a bright, unwavering smile, he declared he was, after all, Eleanor-sama's servant. In the background, Eleanor observed this, her face lighting up with relief and immense joy. Now, in the aftermath, the banquet hall stood empty. In the corridors, Arx slumped against a wall in utter exhaustion. His immaculate uniform housed a tired boy who thought he could finally rest. But a party involved preparation and the grueling task of cleanup. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he lamented his workload. Just as despair set in, a rhythmic knocking echoed through the hall. Nye burst onto the scene with an exuberant smile, announcing the venue cleanup was already complete. Arx was dumbfounded. Nye explained that the entire staff, inspired by seeing Arx give his all, had worked harder and faster. Arx blushed, admitting the praise was embarrassing. He smiled with tired satisfaction, noting it seemed Eleanor had enjoyed herself. Nye's expression softened. Watching Arx, she remarked, took her back. She recounted a memory of holding a party for her childhood friend's 10th birthday when they were both orphans. All she wanted was to give her friend even a small reason to smile. Arx's brow furrowed. He caught a specific phrase, childhood friend. He repeated the word, confusion evident. Nye, misunderstanding, asked if Arx and Eleanor were a bit like childhood friends. Arx was stunned. He mentally processed the information. Eleanor's childhood friend? He questioned his own knowledge, wondering if someone like that even existed in the Celestia Kingdom. The thought nagged at him as he continued working. Something felt off. He attempted to rationalize it, thinking that his own existence was irregular, so perhaps anomalies were to be expected. His introspection was interrupted as Nye was called away. Left alone, Arx slapped his cheeks to wake himself up, determined to finish his work. Then panicked. He realized he had dozed off. He was supposed to visit Eleanor once the cleanup was done. He sprinted through the hallways, arriving at her door out of breath. Silent. She must be asleep. He decided to apologize tomorrow. But as he turned, the door creaked open. He peered into the gap, offering a quick apology. Suddenly, the world tilted. A massive force slammed into him, sending him flying backward. He crashed onto the floor, his eyes dilating in sheer horror. A sound effect clicked, followed by a terrifying reptilian hiss. The room was consumed by darkness. Viscous, ink-like tendrils sprawled across the floor. Arx called out Eleanor's name in a panic. Heavy, labored breathing echoed in the dark. He tried to stand, but his limbs refused to obey. Before him, bare feet stepped onto the floorboards. Pale skin contrasted against unnatural darkness. He lifted his head, sweat pouring down his face. A figure stood in the gloom, spoke his name. It was Eleanor's voice, but the tone was wrong. She stood in a nightgown, shadows curling around her like living things. Arx whispered her title, her name, frozen on the floor, staring up at his mistress at the epicenter of a dark, inexplicable phenomenon. Jagged obsidian tendrils of energy erupted from the floor, swirling violently around Eleanor's small frame. She stood frozen within the eye of the chaotic storm, her expression one of paralyzed fear. Into the scene stepped Arx. He called her name. Eleanor flinched, the dark energy pulsating. But instead of retreating, Arx completely subverted the tension. He lifted a plate of cookies he had been carrying. With a demeanor shifted from shock to casual servitude, he announced he had prepared extra special sweets just for her. The stark contrast between the malevolent shadows and the mundane offering of baked goods created a surreal atmosphere. He chided her gently for being late. Eleanor stared at him, baffled. Arx continued, suggesting that since he had caught her in this compromising position, she should consider him her partner in crime. He held out a cookie. He leaned in, urging her to open her mouth, effectively ignoring the abyssal energy. Overwhelmed by his refusal to be terrified, Eleanor tentatively opened her mouth. The dark energy began to dissipate. She took the bite, the simple act grounding her. She pointed out it was technically still her birthday, so the indulgence was permissible. The atmosphere shifted from chaotic to interrogative. Eleanor asked what that magic was. Arx feigned ignorant. Eleanor pressed on, revealing it was Celestia, a unique magic bestowed upon each individual in this world. Arx listened, his internal thoughts racing. He knew exactly what it was and the dark reputation it carried. Arx was struck by this revelation. In the game lore, her mother was a non-entity. Here, the reality was far crueler. Eleanor believed her mother had no intention of ever meeting her again. She looked down, her eyes dull, resigning herself to isolation. This was the past she endured, a history of rejection starting from the person who should have loved her most. Arx clenched his fist. He couldn't undo the past, but he refused to accept her conclusion. He reached out and grasped her hands, his grip firm and warm. He stared directly into her eyes, his expression fierce with determination. He declared that he wanted to accept her exactly as she was. Being hated was absolutely not her fate. He vowed to stop her from falling into darkness. He held her hand tighter, promising to keep holding it. Eleanor stared at him, tears welling in her eyes. Arx froze, suddenly self-conscious. But then Eleanor chuckled, a genuine sound breaking the melancholy. She admitted she had really been hoping he would say exactly that. Arx doubled down. He meant it and would say it as many times as it took. He pledged himself to her as a friend, as a servant, and as her childhood companion. He wanted to protect her. As the emotional dust settled, his mind shifted to tactical analysis. Eleanor's descent into darkness wasn't innate evil. It was a product of discrimination starting in childhood. By removing the isolation, he had changed the variable. Then, a cold dread seeped into his thoughts. He tried to recall the specific game lore. Why exactly did she fall into darkness? A memory surfaced. He envisioned the character profile for the final boss. The text scrolled through his memory. Calm and sensitive by nature in childhood, she experienced the tragic loss of a close friend at the hands of a young villainous noble. This loss was the catalyst. Arx froze as the realization hit him. Eleanor looked at him, sensing his shift. She whispered that if he were ever to leave, she might just fall apart. Her words confirmed the prophecy. The close friend mentioned in the lore, the trigger for the end of the world, was him. He looked at Eleanor, beaming with newfound hope. The dark tendrils behind her mimicked her joy. The game logic dictated that he would die, and his death would destroy her humanity. If things stayed on their current trajectory, he entered the game's timeline in 5 years. Before he turned 15, he was destined to die. And because of his death, Eleanor would fall into darkness and become the final boss. The tragedy was cyclical. By becoming her support, he had cemented himself as the linchpin whose removal would shatter her. Under the harsh light of day, Arx stood on the training grounds, wielding a wooden sword. He was covered in dirt and abrasions, his breathing ragged. His sparring partner looked concerned, suggesting they take a break. Arx ignored the concern, demanding one more bout. He pulled himself upright, fighting through exhaustion. He had 5 years, maybe less. There was no time to rest. He swung his sword, driving his battered body beyond its limits. He must become the strongest. He must defy the narrative that marked him for death. The clang of wood on wood echoed, a sound of defiance. Under the glaring sun, the sharp rhythm of their practice continued. The instructor suggested a breather, but Arx insisted he was fine, though his heavy breathing betrayed him. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The instructor stammered, realizing they were no longer alone. Behind Arx, a shadow loomed. It was Eleanor, watching the session with a protective, almost predatory intensity. Sensing the danger, the instructor hastily announced a break and retreated. Arx turned. Eleanor stood there, her presence commanding yet hesitant. She admitted she hadn't wanted to get in the way. Arx gently chided her, suggesting she could have just said something. He asked about her lesson. She leaned in, revealing they were already over, hinting she deserved a reward. Understanding, Arx placed his hand on her head. Under his touch, her intense aura evaporated, replaced by a radiant grin. As he petted her, his mind drifted to darker current. He reflected on his efforts to prevent her fall. He thought about how the reason she fell into darkness was the death of her childhood friend. A wave of futility washed over him. He hadn't changed a single thing. The prophecy hung over him. He considered pushing her away, but looking at her vulnerability, he knew it was impossible. Eleanor interrupted his thoughts, asking him to pet her more properly. He complied. He could not sever the bond. He must find another way. Sensitive to his mood, she pulled back, noting he had been acting strange. Arx flinched. Just as he struggled for an excuse, the sparring partner stepped in, claiming Arx Arx was just fired up for the ritual of trial. The guard winked, suggesting he just wanted to show off. Eleanor's eyes widened in delight. Arx's face drained of color. The words ritual of trials echoed in his mind. He remembered it was a ceremony where 10-year-olds ventured into a dungeon. In the game's lore, it was the place he was most likely to die. He stammered an excuse and fled. Safe in the solitude of a corridor, he leaned against a wall, sliding down in despair. He had been so negligent. The ritual of trials was a critical juncture. While safety was supposedly guaranteed, he knew that if something fatal was going to alter the story, it would happen here. He stared at his trembling hand, asking himself what he could do. He refused to accept this fate. Time passed in a blur of anxiety and preparation. On the day before the trial, Arx considered the threat. Poisonous creatures to watch out for. The uncertainty gnawed at him. He wondered if he would truly die tomorrow. He thought about the original Arx from the game story, wondering just how he died. What kind of death would be tragic enough to drive Eleanor into darkness? It felt impossible to defend against a fate when the specific mechanism was unknown. The day of the ritual arrived. Arx and Eleanor stood at the edge of a dense, foreboding forest. The trees loomed high, casting long shadows. Eleanor trembled, her fear visible. Arx gripped his scabbard, steadying his own nerve. He spoke calmly, confirming their objective. They just needed to reach the heart of the forest. They walked deeper. The canopy thickened. Eleanor, her voice small, asked if he wasn't scared. Arx walked ahead, leading the way. He declared he would protect her. It was a promise he intended to keep. Internally, his thoughts were a whirlwind of fear. He admitted to himself that ever since he realized he was destined to die, he had been terrified. But he pushed that terror down, burying it beneath his resolve. He spoke again, his voice steady. He told her he was much more afraid of her getting hurt than anything else. This was the truth that overrode his fear of death. Eleanor looked at his back, finding comfort. She steeled herself, telling him she had prepared as well. Arx clenched his fist. He had prepared, he had trained, and he had sworn to protect her. Now he just had to believe in himself. With a final command, he stepped forward into the unknown. The two figures disappeared into the shadows of the ritual of trials. Walking toward a destiny Arx was determined to rewrite, even as the narrative threatened to consume them. Deep within the ancient forest stood the sacred stone, a colossal rock that marked the objective of today's trial. The task was simple in concept but difficult in execution. Each participant had to claim a fragment of the stone by their own effort, without any outside help. As they walked through the dense woods, Arx noticed movement in the bushes. He found himself mildly annoyed at how obvious the hidden guards were. He understood their presence, of course. Strong monsters rarely appeared in this area, and a full squad of over 10 guards remained on standby to protect the noble children in case of emergency. Eleanor noticed his distraction and called out to him. She asked if he had sensed something nearby. Arx dismissed it as his imagination, but Eleanor admitted she had also felt like someone was watching them for a while now. Arx's surprise showed quietly on his face. He hadn't expected her intuition to be so sharp. He smiled and reassured her it would be fine. Gripping his sword, he promised to protect her if anything happened. Eleanor clung to him nervously, placing her complete trust in him as she said she was counting on him. Hidden in the bushes, the guards silently thanked Arx for his help. Arx mentally wished they would try harder not to be noticed. The two continued forward until a loud rustling erupted from the bushes. Both turned sharply toward the sound. Arx tensed, immediately sensing this presence felt different from the guards. Something was strange here. He thought briefly of the monster that would one day kill him, but what emerged was something else entirely. A small, fluffy creature with a single horn appeared and let out a soft cry. Arx and Eleanor stared in surprise. Arx recognized it immediately as an almirage and confirmed its identity. Eleanor asked if he planned to attack it. Arx warned her not to be fooled by appearances. Despite looking cute, these creatures were bloodthirsty monsters. As if understanding the conversation, the almirage lunged forward with shocking speed, its horn aimed directly at them. Eleanor screamed as it charged. Arx moved instantly, stepping in front of her and swinging his sword in one clean motion. The blade caught the almirage mid-charge, stopping its attack cold before it could reach her. Eleanor asked nervously if it was over. Ark lowered his sword cautiously and began sheathing it. The almirage toppled onto its back and lay completely still. Elanor noticed something strange immediately. There was no blood. She wondered why that was. Ark explained he had used a technique that cut internally, which left no external wound. She reached out and touched the small creature's body. It looked peaceful, almost as if it were sleeping. She noted quietly that just moments ago it had been bouncing around happily. Elanor looked down at her hands, visibly shaken. Ark noticed her reaction and asked gently if she was in shock. She admitted it was shocking, but she understood it couldn't be helped. Ark watched her quietly. The ritual of trials was designed to teach this exact lesson. To survive in this world, sometimes you had to take a life. He felt a swell of pride at how much she had grown. Elanor said softly that even so, it was still sad when something cute died. Ark agreed with a small smile, acknowledging she was right. She looked at her hands and spoke quietly, almost to herself. If she could, she would lock creatures like that away somewhere safe forever instead of letting them die. Her expression was sad and conflicted. The idea of killing something so innocent troubled her deeply. Ark listened silently to her words, understanding the weight behind them. Then suddenly, Elanor brightened and cheerfully announced they should get going. She smiled happily, acting as if nothing had happened. Ark felt something was wrong, but he wondered if he was imagining things. They continued walking through the forest until Ark stopped, recognizing they had arrived at their destination. The sacred stone loomed before them, massive and ancient. He told Elanor they should start scraping off a fragment right away to complete the task. Working together, they successfully collected fragments from the stone and secured them in a bottle. Ark announced they had accomplished their goal. Elanor suggested taking a short break, exhausted from the effort. Ark agreed readily. Suddenly he tensed, hearing a scream in the distance. 3 boys emerged from the trees and noticed them ahead on the path. One mentioned they had fallen behind because they got lost. They assumed Ark and Elanor were just other commoners taking the same exam. Then one of them stopped and stared at Ark with recognition. The boy's expression twisted with resentment. He knew Arkansas. He was the one his mother and the other adults had taken a liking to, the one held up as an example that had gotten him scolded. Ark remembered the incident, a child being reprimanded and told to follow Ark's example. This was likely that same boy. The boys confirmed his identity and then turned their attention to Elanor, recognizing her too. They called her Crow Girl, singling both of them out with obvious contempt. They whispered among themselves, shocked to realize the Crow Girl their mothers talked about was actually a noble. Ark glared at them, silently demanding they stop. The boys flinched under his gaze but panicked and exaggerated the rumors, calling her a monster crow who would eat them before running away in fear. Ark watched them go, irritated at how idiots spread such cruel rumors. He started after them, but Elanor grabbed his shirt, stopping him. She calmly told him to please stop, showing no desire to escalate things. Ark looked surprised and tried to protest, but Elanor gently asked if he really thought their words bothered her. She implied the rumors held no power over her. Ark stared at her in surprise as she calmly explained there was no need to worry. She was used to this kind of treatment. He realized he might have become too overprotective, especially knowing how his future death could push her toward darkness. Elanor turned away slightly, and he reflected that she had gotten stronger. He admitted feeling a little relieved. She leaned in close to him and softly said that as long as he acknowledged her, that was all that mattered. Her gentle smile showed her words were sincere. His support meant more to her than anything others said. Ark looked slightly overwhelmed, thinking to himself that she really had gotten stronger. He felt relief, but also a hint of conflict he couldn't quite name. Nearby, a guard commented that with Ark around, they might not even be necessary. Another guard thought privately that while Ark was strong, something about him still seemed uncertain. He remembered how desperately Ark had asked him to respond immediately if anything happened, saying please with genuine worry in his eyes. The guard reflected that Ark had looked so desperate in that moment that he couldn't possibly ignore him. Another guard shrugged, noting that since nothing actually happened, he felt pretty underwhelmed by the whole experience. One of them examined a footprint on the ground and frowned, saying he didn't recognize it. He wondered if it might belong to the commoner children. Even so, the cautious one decided to check on the scouts ahead just to be safe. The other reacted with confusion, surprised he was taking it so seriously. It was probably nothing, he said, teasing his companion for being too serious. The 2 guards walked away down the path, relaxed and completely unaware. Behind them, dark shadowy shapes began creeping in from the bushes. Darkness gathered silently around someone's feet, hinting that something far more dangerous than anyone realized was about to unfold.